Hello, and welcome to Tech Connects, DICE's podcast where we dig into the topics on tech hiring, recruiting, and careers that matter to you. I'm your host, Nick Kolakowski, and today we're going to be talking about the impact of artificial intelligence on talent acquisition. As part of that, we're chatting with Steve Levy, who's the principal talent advisor at DHI Group, DICE's parent company. As you'll see, he's very dedicated to the idea of hiring talent in the most human-centric way possible, and he also has great insights into how companies can effectively integrate artificial intelligence into their hiring practices. Just as an aside, he also has great recommendations for books and newsletters that you can peruse as part of your AI learning journey. So let's listen in. And be aware, I was a little slow in hitting the record button on this, so the conversation, it's going to get off to a very fast start, but hopefully you will enjoy it.
Word that Keith Sanderling, who is the EEOC commissioner, has tendered his he's going to finish his term, and he's going to end his term in August.
Oh, really?
Now, the thing about Keith is, I know Keith is, he was the key proponent of AI regulations.
Oh, wow. In terms of, this is for people who don't know, I hit record, by the way, but for the people who don't know, this is the Equal Opportunity Commission, right?
Yeah, the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Yeah. So he was a huge advocate of regulating.
Keith was the primary within the federal government with respect to hiring. Keith was the zenith. He was the guiding light for all things, I wrote internally to some of our people here at Industry News. Keith Sanderling, the EEOC commissioner, just posted literally this morning that he'll be leaving the EEOC in August. This means that the primary advocate for calling out the lack of AI regulation at the federal level for bias is leaving.
That's very intense, and especially it's really auspicious moment for him to be leaving because, it seems like all the conversations around, obviously we've got an emerging tech on one hand, we've got all these conversations about dealing with the bias in that emerging tech, and now this guy is leaving, and that's going to...
Well, the real challenge, Nick, is as I've continued here, I go, meanwhile, the White House, SCOTUS, and Congress have all changed the rules for federal contractors and private sector when it comes to AI compliance and fines with their guidance and judgment. And so this is going to be a very interesting back half of 2024.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Overregulation, underregulation. It's not like my porridge is just right is not something that I think we're going to hear.
No. The thing that's interesting about it, too, is that there's so many companies that are trying to automate. They're trying to automate the production of said porridge. They're trying to get it just right through, to trying to figure out if there's an algorithm or if there's a way to kind of eliminate bias and so on. And it just, it strikes me as everybody's sort of proceeding blind. A lot of people are proceeding blindly into this whole space, but nobody's quite sure of anything almost. It seems like...
To some extent, really, there are two camps to this. On one side, there are people who are they're always seduced by that sweet smell of new technology. Doesn't matter who they are. They realize I have opposable thumbs for a reason. I need to do something with them. But the challenge, though, is that with every new technology, and I'm old enough to remember when PCs entered the workforce, when the internet became a bigger thing than Al Gore had ever imagined. That's just a joke, people.
Yes.
Y2K, when the world did not come to an end. Obviously, post 9/11, the TSA and the elevated and the escalation of monitoring. Look, and I'm going to use a phrase that just makes me laugh every time I say it. At the end of the day,
that old cliche,
you cannot eliminate bias unless you eliminate human beings. And it can be subtle. We see them in hiring, and there was a case, I guess the last week or so, I came out in the news, a hotel in Detroit, upscale hotel in Detroit, There was a fellow who had serious upscale hotel experience, and he had what some would consider to be a representative first and last name for a person of color. It happened to be an African American, and he got turned down every time. And so he changed it to a substantially more white, Caucasian-oriented name and got interviews right away, except then they saw him and they, how are you going to, how will the bias will always be there. You know how it is. We have, after we've gone through the hiring process, Nick, we have debriefs. And invariably someone is going to say, well, Nick, I just don't think Steve is a culture fit. And everyone will go along, oh, okay, well, I know what culture means. I go, no, time out. The solution is actually a human one. Someone there has to use their big adult voice and say, excuse me, can you tell me what questions you asked and what were the person's responses that led you to this conclusion that they're not a culture fit?
Yeah. I mean,
and typically you get, well, I just felt it way. No. That was the bad street meat you had for lunch. That's what that was. That wasn't real. You have to tell me something, or else. And this is where recruiting becomes very progressive and human-centric. Is you're going to have to go back and ask some questions, or else this is not proceeding past this spot. That takes chutzpah, as a technical TA term.
Yeah, and it's sort of almost the antithesis of what you would get with AI, at least at this juncture, because in terms of like that reasoning and so on, it's not like, for example, Amazon. There's this infamous case with Amazon where they tried to, and I assume that you know what I'm about to refer to.
Because I did work there and I know the people behind it. So yes,
yeah, exactly. Where if the best of intentions, they tried to create a resume. This is off the top of my head, so I might be getting the details wrong, but it was a resume filter and it accidentally biased by gender, because the set that they fed into it for training, as I recall, was there was something about the training set where all of a sudden it was excluding all women candidates. And the system, obviously, unlike a human being, unlike the person having the adult conversation and stepping up and asking like the important questions and so on, the machine just didn't question it. It's trained a certain way. The model followed the certain thing, and then it accidentally vaporized candidates it shouldn't have been vaporizing. So
that's exactly what it was.
So I feel like we need, if AI is going to be part of, especially for culture and things, like if AI is going to be part of that conversation, I just feel it's got, maybe OpenAI is working on it in some dark little windowless room somewhere, but I feel like it's going to be another couple iterations.
We're looking at a substantial number of iterations. I'm looking for a quote that I used in a presentation. I actually use it regularly. I'm trying to find it as quickly as I can for purposes of
Google's not feeding it up to you through that synthetic AI thing.
It's not Google. This is something that I've used in. It's one of my favorite quotes about the use of artificial intelligence or AI-ish. And there, for the longest of time, there was a quote I used: if it's written in Python, it's machine learning. If it's written in PowerPoint, it's AI.
Oh, great quote.
And but that really is, I think this is what it is. This is something I used quite a long time ago, and I'll read it because it's a good one. This is from Andrew Moore, who ran the Carnegie Mellon, I think, Human Machine Interface Lab. That's where the Software Engineering Institute, so many good things in software engineering technology came from Carnegie Mellon. He wrote, one thing I'm seeing among my own faculty is the realization that we technologists, computer scientists, engineers who are building AI have to appeal to someone else to create these programs. When coming up with a driverless car, for example, how does the car decide what to do when an animal comes into the road? When you write the code, there's the question: how much is an animal life's worth next to a human's life? Is one human life worth the lives of 1 billion domestic cats? 1 million? 1,000? I would hate to be the person writing that code.
Yeah.
So therein lies one of the core challenges of all this until we reach the level of sentience in Skynet, is the people who are writing the code for this also have inherent subconscious, unconscious, genetic biases or something of that sort. I don't want to make light of it, but the code, your essence comes out in the things that you do. You can choose it when, may be somewhat similar. When I say something that just, where did those words come from? And I can't blame my late mom and dad because it came out of my mouth. I go, where is this coming from in me? That's not good. I need to find out what it is and why it is. That as we're doing more and more AI stuff, trusting. Are you going to trust a machine yet? I use it, and I teach other recruiters how to use GPTs and other related technologies to augment the things they do, to save an inordinate amount of time. I'm not going to use it right now to make decisions.
No, totally. And yet, I mean, the thing about it, I was just speaking with the president of O'Reilly Media on the podcast the other week, and she was saying about how, and also, I mean, we had the CIO of TIA. Reflexively, I say TIA crap, but it's TIA.
TIAA, yes.
Exactly. So and both of them were saying about, they were proceeding cautiously through AI and like planning everything out meticulously, but they both kept saying the words ready, fire, aim over and over again with reference to how so many people are proceeding with AI, which is a little scary given what you're saying, like in terms of like no one's thinking about guardrails. They're just like, we need to implement this now, without sort of any concern for, as you said, how conscious and unconscious biases and so on infect and ultimately corrupt potentially systems that need to be incorruptible and are mission critical, like hiring and so on. So it's an interesting thing where you're saying this and it's 110% reasonable. I mean, we're with you 100%, but 110% as well. But, it seems like there's such a rush to embrace all of this and get AI-powered hiring.
Well, of course
blah, blah,
it
blah.
is. This is sort of where when I first started talking, long story short for the audience, I was an engineer for 15 years. I was building, we called them expert systems in the 80s. But it was similar technology. The code, anybody with gray in their beard should know about Lisp and Prolog and things of that nature. Wonderful technologies, and the names Marvin Minsky and Ed Feigenbaum. These were the two of the key members of the AI family tree. Minsky at MIT and Feigenbaum at Stanford. But what to me, I've been following this sometimes closer than not, and there is. I started out by saying this seductive smell of scent of the lure of new technology. I mean, it's like sugar water, hummingbirds to sugar water, and then you don't know. The ready, aim, fire thing is. I wondered where it was coming from, but last year in the Gallup organization did a poll. A workplace poll, and they asked the question that I'm pulling from the report. Leaders believe the future is automated. Short term, do you see AI replacing jobs in your organization in the next 12 months? Yes, 16%. No, 66%. Don't know, 18%. This was asked of CHROs. Long term, do you see AI replacing jobs at your organization in the next 3 years? Yes, 72%. No, 12%. Don't know, 17%. 16% short term to 72% long term. Are CHROs suddenly becoming educated on everything and anything AI?
No, of course not.
Or are they following the lead from their CEOs and the CFOs and shareholders who are saying, well, we can use this to reduce G&A costs, expenses rather.
There's
the education piece is coming second.
Mm-hmm.
The euphoria is coming first.
There was a great Goldman Sachs report, which I'm sure you saw, that came out. I believe it was last week, where it was their attempt. You can envision a bunch of Goldman Sachs analysts with an enormous bucket of ice water, trying to like drag it as quickly as possible towards the whole concept of AI and toss it on, because they were saying that the CapEx expenditures, once everything is all said and done in terms of infrastructure and chips and everything else on AI, will be $1 trillion. And how do companies justify that cost? They reach the conclusion that the way you justify that cost is you eliminate the human capital that costs money, and therefore you sort of start to edge closer to fulfilling that. And when I was reading that, I was thinking, this is, absurdly scary, absurdly pessimistic, absurdly whatever. But you do have these CEOs who think that they're going to be able to eliminate entire divisions worth of developers, and that one 10x developer with the help of AI tools is suddenly going to become a 100x developer. They're going to pay one salary and everything's going to magically get done. I just don't see that coming around. There's so much creativity and all these other things involved in tech. I just have a hard time believing in wholesale employment destruction. I could be wrong.
I think wholesale employment disruption.
Yeah,
I'll go with that one. Destruction, no. Every paradigm shift. If you've read Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolution, anybody who's into workforce planning and futurism stuff, Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolution is every time we see a paradigm shift, things die out and new things are born. The people who do well are the people who are educated and prepared and are trying it. And much of the negative hubbub around AI is just lack of education. Try it. Something as simple as asking it a question. Do research. Please don't ask it to write engaging outreach emails to people who are in job search mode, because when you think of how things are trained, and there's a lot of bad stuff out there that's used as fuel for the algorithm. But know the limitations. Try it, play with it, ask questions. I don't think we do enough of that.
No.
And when I do things for friends, when I do things for groups of people in TA and show them the things they can do with it, I'm not beyond as much as I like doing things myself. I'm all for doing for doing quick turnarounds. Using ChatGPT. Look, I have a paid version of ChatGPT. It works. I also have a favorite site called Grok, not Elon's thing. It's grok.com. It's a free site that allows you to select one of 6 LLMs to run your prompt through. That's smart. And the reason that's smart is it's the same reason when we search online, we should never just use one browser. From a recruiting standpoint, from a sourcing standpoint, I use 5, 6 browsers, depending on, and part of it is you get that intuition depending on the search. So you have to do what you need to pull back, which one might be better. But you have to play and you have to try. And those 2 sites allow me to do everything from, creating, fun graphics for posts, which, pull people in, to, building assessment rubrics for positions, because I don't want to get to that debrief meeting when it's all subjective. I just don't think, no, tell me why. It's good for things like that right now. Down the line, roles will be made, it's an O word, and it's Monday morning. I can't even think of the O word.
I haven't even had enough coffee yet.
Obsolescent.
Yeah.
Roles will be made obsolete, but new ones will come on board. And how is the audience ready? What are you doing right now to prepare yourself? Don't view it as an enemy. View it as an ally, and play with it. It's, or if you're big into Lao Tzu, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer.
For the people who want to, especially I'm thinking this from a recruiter's context, like the people who want to sort of get ahead of the game, for the people who are saying to themselves, like, I need to learn these skills now, I need to master, and I have zero idea of where to start whatsoever when it comes to anything AI. Is it a matter of learning as much about solid prompt engineering as possible? What do you think is sort of, with your limited time?
That's part of it. It's, before you get to the prompt stuff, you have to know what what are you hoping to discover? What are you hoping to create? There are, it's like having all the answers, but not knowing the questions. if you're the kind of person who do you just go to a browser, type in a search thing, and the third one down that seems right, that's where you end your discovery?
Yeah, no, not a good idea. Not
No,
great.
it's not a good idea. But you learn. I mean, there are very good books, written by friends of mine. My friend Mike Wolford wrote a book called The AI Recruiter, in which he wrote it in, I think, roughly 2.5 weeks, just on prompts. But you can just as easily, and I do this. You have if you go into any browser and type prompt engineering in quotes, space, and the word overview, you're going to learn a whole lot about prompt engineering. Read them. Get your teams together and talk about these things. Run searches together. I mean, set it up. If you have 5 people on a team, 6 people on a team, each create an account on Grok and select a different LLM, run a prompt, and compare and contrast the answers and discuss them. Yeah, you really have to be active in this.
Yeah. Yeah, and use your human intuition and creativity and everything you were saying before, like just kind of apply that.
Well, human intuition's a funny thing, because that's what we're using when we say, I just don't think they're going to be a culture fit.
Good point. Yeah.
And so human intuition in and of itself is inherently biased without any checks and balances. And the highly emotional, intelligent person, which I have yet to achieve in my decades of life.
Well, we're all working towards it.
We're all working towards that. Sometimes I don't check myself, but I do. But most of the time, I do check myself, because I've trained that little voice inside my head to go, "You knucklehead! Where did that come from? Back it up. Find the data to back it up, okay?" But it's really is a process of just continuous learning. Being a lifelong learner means that you are not going to fall prey to new things that come along. Don't ask yourself how it's going to hurt me. Ask yourself how it's going to help me. And then ask people. There are plenty of people in the internet sphere, and also people you work with who are trying these things. Get together, build an AI club in your company where you're going to share tips and tricks. I mean, be active.
It seems like, it's just in resisting this pull or this urge to sort of bring things online without sort of this process and this experimentation, this tinkering. Like it reminds me a little. It's what was that movement that was particularly popular in Europe? Like the slow eating movement, where where all these people were trying to push against what they saw as sort of this acceleration of modern life to a degree that they found unpalatable, and like is slow cooking and things like that. It's almost like that, like an AI in a certain way. You want to take your time as much as you can almost, and like study this and understand it and think about it and think through things before you implement or try to iterate.
It's the contractor's maxim: measure twice, cut once. Or I think in the age of the internet and social media, it's like think thrice before pause before you press.
The funniest quote about AI I read recently is something to the effect of, like, the human brain is this amazing structure that is powered, it's 2.2 pounds and is powered by pizza. Whereas with AI, you've got something that has the power needs of the city of Milwaukee, and you feed it the entire internet. And if you're not careful, what it's going to produce is a half-decent college essay or a half-decent recruiting email or whatever you might want to throw into that breach. And I don't think that's necessarily reflective of anything. I just thought it was funny to think about, like, kind of where we are in terms of the early stages of AI and kind of how this is progressing forward. And how, maybe a little bit of skepticism is warranted at some moments with regard to the outputs, certainly. No, it's fascinating. It also seems that, almost as if recruiters, in addition to kind of this experimentation and playing around with it internally, that they should advocate to people above them almost regardless. Because that CEO who has dreams of kind of cutting away everybody and earning massive profits from these things probably needs to be told that, we need to proceed carefully and put guardrails on this process and really think about it and so on. And that's a hard conversation to have, but it's what's coming to mind for me at the moment.
It's very difficult to lead up. And you have to ask the question, and it's a hard question, especially nowadays. Let's talk about a recruiter. How many recruiters since the beginning of 2023? At least 65,000 recruiters have been laid off globally.
Wow. I wasn't.
Now think about, I have friends who have been out far longer than they should have been because they're fantastic recruiters. For whatever reason, they're not working. And so let's say you want to go to CEO. Nick, I need to ask you a question. What's the source of your data that's telling you that we're going to reduce our headcount by X amount for, due to AI? Can you show it to me?
Because, a BuzzFeed article.
Okay, fine. Let's discuss it and let's break it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard conversation to have because you must be educated yourself.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Now, you get to a point in your life, and I've reached it where, I don't care what your title is. If I have something to say to you, I'll say it. I'll couch how I say it. I won't be the arrogant, censored person I was, decades ago. But, it's, I don't know if you're old enough. There was Sims there was a clothes store in the New York metropolitan area. And Sims was an old guy, always very impeccably dressed. And Sims in all his ads would say, at Sims, an educated consumer is our best customer.
I don't remember those. I mean, maybe if I saw it in my
you just go Sims.
Okay, so.
But that's what it is nowadays. Do not think you can osmotically pull all this stuff in about AI without reading about it. I have 2 AI-specific newsletters that I receive every day. And they're fantastic. The TLDR AI and the Runway AI. They're really good newsletters.
I get the Runway AI one. Yeah, it is. It is fantastic.
Yeah, the TLDR is a good one too. I have a friend of mine who is the TA person behind the company.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll start reading that one too.
That's a good one. But there are others. I'm MIT's Technology Review regularly, Stanford University, the institutes that are there, Carnegie Mellon, the institutes that are there. I'm somewhat of maybe I'm somewhat different since I'm maybe more technical than others in TA, but I don't want to be blindsided by something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, especially now. And it seems like, just the iterative progression for a lot of these things is so rapid in some ways that, you ignore it for a month or two at your peril, I feel, especially in like TA. Yeah.
A month. Yes. Often it's even quick. Things happen. Things happen very quickly. I think ultimately that there's something core behind all this. And a couple of years back, Warren Buffett lamented the change of the stock market, its whole ethos. It morphed from being an investment platform to a speculation platform. Yeah. There is an inordinate amount of speculation when it comes to AI. Particularly, there's an inordinate amount of speculation when it comes to AI and talent acquisition. There is a belief from the masses that there are these little bots, AIs, running through all your applicant tracking systems saying, no, bad person, they're too old. No, bad person, they're too black. No, bad person, they're too gay. It's not like that. The reality of it is any system these days is only as good as the recruiters who are using it. How it was integrated, how it was set up, how it is managed on a day-to-day basis. Those are all controllable. But it requires going into the system, understanding it, and making the changes, bringing up, if something concerns you about potential bias or bad decision making, bring it up, escalate it, take it to the founders, take it to the CEO of the company that's providing it to you. But be active. Don't just wait for it to come to bite you in the butt.
Yeah. I hope people take those words to heart just because, like you said, and this isn't just in TA, but I feel with AI in general that there's too much of a, impulse for people to lean back and let it do its thing, with all the potential consequences from that. And some of that stems from a lack of knowledge about, especially with generative AI, what it's fully capable and not capable of. But yeah, no, I think like active involvement, and proactive thinking through this thing is really going to help recruiters and everybody else through it. So we'll see.
And sharing, and there's not a single recruiter conference coming up. And I was part of one conference late last year, AI for Talent. Really, the first one. Everybody was talking about AI for talent. Talent Acquisition Week is coming up the week of the 22nd, so it's next week.
Yeah,
and I am leading a panel on AI in sourcing. And there are conferences that are coming up in September. RecFest is the big one in Nashville. With my friend, I'm leading and managing a stage on sourcing, and everyone's going to weave in some sort of AI element. Others are coming up in August, in which we're going to be talking about how to use AI and AI-ish tools and concepts to augment what you're doing now and to make it better, essentially to compress the time to do the things that you need to do. Yeah. And the way I see it is the more time that I can compress, the more admin stuff that I can compress, the more time I can spend human to human. And ultimately that's what we're doing. We're still hiring human beings. Yeah. And we need to understand and the process itself is it's ripe for improvement. And anything that allows us to inject more humanity into a process will result in more humane employees and more humane performance. And I posit that a more human company will produce more revenues.
Yeah, and ultimately do better. You incorporate different perspectives and things like that. I agree 100%. We just have to see. Well, that was interesting. I always love a deep dive into the particulars of AI and machine learning, especially with someone like Steve who's been studying the technology for some time. Here are some key takeaways from our discussion that you can apply to your own AI journey, particularly if you're trying to figure out how to use AI to fulfill your talent acquisition needs. First, educate yourself about AI and its limitations. What's that mean? There's a lack of education and a rush to adopt AI at some companies, leading to potential biases and a lack of understanding of how AI works. It's important to be aware of the limitations of AI and to use it as a tool alongside human expertise, not as a replacement. Second, be skeptical and question how AI decisions are made. AI can perpetuate biases if the data is trained on is biased. Tech professionals should be critical of AI outputs and ask questions about the reasoning behind them. Don't blindly trust AI for decisions, especially concerning hiring. Third, start playing with AI tools. There are free resources available online that allow you to experiment with different AI language models. Learning about prompt engineering, for example, will help you ask the right AI questions and get the most useful outputs. Fourth, collaboration is key. Discuss AI with your team and learn from each other. Get your team involved in exploring AI tools and discussing their potential applications. Sharing knowledge and experiences will help you navigate the ethical and practical considerations of AI in the workplace. We'll see you next time, and remember, we are your best resource to find the tech talent you need to fill your open roles, and for technology professionals, the best place to grow your tech career.